Hello, my name is Myron Kent, and the Kent Family Endowment Fund for the Arts sponsors Eggs and Stuff, a family hobby group that was developed from 2005 until now. the the Kent Family Endowment Fund comprises of family members that are artisans, I guess is a good word to say it, that are artisans and they do eggshell designing and producing. Uh, they taught me how to do it, but I'm an artist. I learned my artistry from the gentleman on public broadcasting. I think his name was Ross. I don't remember his first name. But what I like to do now is I'm an evangelist, and my email is oneevangelist at gmail.com. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a series on a brief history of the restoration of the New Testament Church of Christ. I'm going to read to you, so I'm going to be I'm going to be blocking a lot of stuff, and I'm going to be looking down a lot so I can read. This is the causes and roots of the restoration. Introduction. 1. What history calls the restoration movement is in reality a misnomer because the church needs no restoring. It is perfect because anything, of course, comes from God is perfect. Okay, continuing. For example, A, when it gets into a condition that needs restoring, it is no longer the church. And producing um, documents like the historians and translators and people that uh, they don't make history because history is already made, but they teach and they provide information about the Bible and about, all the rest of that stuff. It is no longer the church. If you read Matthew 16, and I think verse 16, Jesus tells Peter, I will build my church, his church, because all authority is given to him in heaven and on earth. And he told Peter, I will build, future tense, I will build my church, his church. Anybody that forms any other kind of building and calls it a church and lays down ordinances and policies It's a human founded church. Now, they like all I can think of is the Roman Church. The Catholic people are fine people. If they would quit, if they would quit the Pope and get rid of all their theocracy, because it's not a democracy, it's a theocracy. And the reason it's a theocracy is because they followed the Apostle Paul's doctrine about not being married. And most of the people during the Dark Ages took it literally and they required their priests not to be married. And that was wrong. The Apostle Paul later on apologized for it, like he apologized for supporting the church, the people, well, because he had a profession. He made tents, and he never required anything uh, like tithes and offerings, and he paid for his own travel and preaching. Well, he felt bad about that because if you read in, I think it's Galatians chapter 6 and verse 6, the number of a man. But if you read in Galatians, it says, if you're taught from the word, you're to share equally with the one that teaches you, and that included money. There's no equality sharing if you don't include everything. So, for example, if a farmer that produces chickens and has a spare chicken, the first fruit is to bring him, whoever it is, to bring a batch of eggs and so forth. If it's a gardener, to bring the vegetables. That's first fruits. Okay? I'm not going to get into a whole bunch. I'm going on a sidebar. I don't want to do too many sidebars. I want to get started. So, uh, A, when it gets into a condition that needs restoring, it is no longer the church. B, rather, people who have departed need to return to it. This is continuing the introduction. That was chapter 1 for the introduction. Here's chapter 2. This so-called return movement resulted in many people being led out of denomination and in the formation of many congregations patterned after the New Testament order. And in one of my other series, I read from a book produced by a minister named Leroy Brownlow, 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 Leroy Brownlow. And he uses the method of necessary inference. necessary inference is the practical application from scripture with other scripture. And we use necessary inference for the purpose of teaching, because context without content, or content without context, produces error. And nowadays, you'll find most so-called preachers, they look through the Bible and they find a chapter and verse that they like that fits their thought, and they don't compare it with other scripture. They just say, well, first fruits is as as the Lord has in um, uh, process or something. Anyway, um, they use that to raise money. Anyway, I'm going to get back to reading. So that was the second. That was the second chapter. Okay. I'm just going to start reading all the way through now. Question: what is restoration? As the 18th century drew to a close and the 19th century began, men appeared on the religious horizon who seriously and oh gosh, that's a tough one. Zealously, I can't pronounce it. Zealously thought or return to the quote, the old paths. It's Jeremiah 6 and verse 16. The primitive religion of Jesus Christ. And it was primitive because it was considered during the Dark Ages, it was considered the holy language, and only well-trained uh, minister and clergy could uh, be taught the ancient holy language, which turned out to be, my goodness, I'm going on side roads again. I'm going to be quiet and just keep reading. They saw what the reformers had failed to see, that what was needed was not a reformation of the apostate church, but a complete and full return to the purity of the church in the first century. They boldly expressed their dissatisfaction with Protestant denominationalism and its multiplicity of divergent creeds, names, doctrines, and practices. They rejected the idea that man's religious, I'm going to slow down. I'm reading too fast. I'm sorry if I'm taking up a whole lot of time. I got my laptop. I got my laptop on my chest so I can read better. So, anyway, listen to me. I'm going to repeat all this. Okay. Well, what I'm going to do for right now, I'm just going to call this a prelude, a test to see how well the camera and my operating camera is doing. So I'm going to end the stream right now.